On Tuesday, you filed a lawsuit on behalf of Kev Hill, and I just wanted you to break down for me what is in that lawsuit.
Yes, so the lawsuit regards an incident in Lane County on July 22nd, 2023, when Mr. Hill attended the Lane County Fair with his friends for the first time, and they had a ticket. They went through security without issue. This is in the complaint. After the friends walked into the fair that night, Mr. Hill was approached from behind by a man in a cowboy hat with what looked like, jeans, boots with spurs, and a gun on his hip, tried to grab Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill pulled away. The persons pursued him. So he ran back out of the fairgrounds, heading towards his friend's house. The friends lived a few blocks away. So he ran after this person tried to grab him. It turns out that, based on information and belief in what's in our lawsuit, the people who are trying to grab him were part of the sheriff's mounted posse, which are not employees of the sheriff's department, but a volunteer auxiliary that does things like helping park cars at events or participating in parades. Members of the mounted posse and then private security guards got in a golf cart and chased Mr. Hill down several blocks until Mr. Hill collapsed in a church parking lot of Emmaus Lutheran Church with having an asthma attack. He was on his knees having an asthma attack. The complaint states the posse and private security guard tried to ram him with the golf cart. Mr. Hill was able to get out of the way. They then dismounted the golf cart and tackled Mr. Hill to the ground with a knee in his back for several minutes, would not let him up. Mr. Hill was saying, "I can't breathe. Please let me turn over. Can I sit on your golf cart? I'm not going to go anywhere." They would not let him up. Eventually, and this is again in the lawsuit, the friends arrived, caught up with them, and had a mother had come from the house, the mother of the friend. Three witnesses there started recording on their phones, and finally, Mr. Hill was let to sit up, but he couldn't leave. Mr. Hill asked, am I being arrested? They said no. Am I free to leave? No. No medical attention was provided to Mr. Hill, even after he started vomiting red fluid and was still having this asthma attack. And what we've learned, and this is in the complaint from public records which have been released, is that there had been a shooting at a shooting at Lane County Fair the day before. Police were looking for the suspect of the shooting, who was initially described as white with a red hat. Mr. Hill is a young black man from Portland. He did not match the description of the shooter based on that information in the public record. And even while the posse and the security company were pursuing Mr. Hill, the Eugene Police Department, who was investigating that shooting, confirmed to the fair staff Mr. Hill did not match the description. He wasn't a suspect. They didn't have interest in pursuing him. And so they pursued him anyways and did this several blocks off the fairgrounds. So Mr. Hill, of course, in the complaint, it states this experienced significant emotional distress, as well as needing medical care as a result of this incident. But I think really this case raises the questions about the role and authority of civilian volunteers acting under color of law or acting in this quasi law enforcement capacity with firearms, and concerns about training, oversight, and accountability of law enforcement affiliated groups. And it also brings to light and traces, some of the historical and legal context for mounted posses in the United States, but in Southern Oregon in particular, and their evolving role in public safety. We talk about in the complaint instances of mounted posses in Oregon in the past, making death threats to judges, leading citizen grand juries to try to arrest public officials, including judges, and other concerning behavior arising at the same time as we were seeing, KKK membership in Oregon increasing and a lot of the sundown town policies being enforced in Southern Oregon. And that's where a lot of mounted posses stem from culturally. And I think this lawsuit helps shine a light on some of the concerns about those auxiliary groups and the oversight or lack of oversight they're receiving.
It's been about 3 years now. Why now to file the lawsuit?
Well, it takes time to be able to conduct the investigation, to get government records. There was an FBI investigation. Of course, while that's ongoing, you let it play its role. There was also some investigation, or at least support provided by the Oregon Department of Justice Civil Rights Unit. You let that play its role. And then there was, of course, trying to, find witnesses, get copies of public records, which can all take time, and put the case together. There's also a time limit when the lawsuit must be brought within 2 years. So we're just coming up on that 2 year mark.
And how did you all find out? Was it the public records that you found out this was a mounted posse?
I can't disclose confidential information from our investigation, but I can confirm that public records show that this was the mounted posse that was involved. And I don't think there's any dispute the mounted posse were at the Lane County Fair and working with Lane County Sheriff's Department, providing some security and car parking services.
When we break down the main entities that are in this lawsuit, how are they accountable? The sheriff's office, the county, the
Mhm.
fair board, how are each of those entities accountable?
So the Lane County Sheriff's Department is a department within Lane County, just like Public Works. So we've sued Lane County because its employees at the sheriff's department were involved. The Lane County Sheriff's Mounted Posse is actually a separate entity. It's its own, essentially, nonprofit entity, but that has its headquarters inside the sheriff's department and will work for the sheriff's department. So, again, this is, I think, part of the concerns that are being raised within the context of this case is we have essentially private entities of private citizens, but with headquarters inside our public sheriff's department, but they're not county employees. They are not subject to the same oversight as our sheriff's deputies are. And I think as we allege in the complaint, also not receiving the same training that our sheriff's deputies are. And that's some of the issues and concerns this lawsuit's going to delve into. We're at the very early stages right now.
And how is Mr. Hill coping with what he says has happened?
I mean, this has been a very difficult experience for Mr. Hill, as we discussed in the complaint. Emotional distress, trauma, loss of dignity, fear, certainly, anxiety, certainly. He had, he was going to the fair for the first time, very excited to go with his friends. They had been there earlier in the day, gotten the the snow cone, the elephant ear, went on the Ferris wheel together. We're having a great time. Really excited to see the horses, right? He's from Portland, had not been to this county fair before. So this was a lot of, what you might see in a child going to the fair for the first time and having that experience. And it was a great one. They left because it was really hot and then came back at night and this happens. So very different experience. He had just, for the first time, signed his apartment lease that week. It was a big week for him. He was 20 years old at the time, had just got his own first apartment on his own, negotiated the lease. So this was just a really traumatic experience for him. As we said in the complaint, he had to take some time away from work in the initial aftermath, and he's continuing to try to recover, but also, find a path forward in life and not let it hold him back. And he wants accountability in bringing the lawsuit and to ensure something like this doesn't happen again.
And what other uh, desires are there on Mr. Hill's behalf through this lawsuit? What does he want to see happen?
Well, certainly there's a demand for the compensation piece, which we see typically in, plaintiffs' cases where someone's been injured or harmed. But also the lawsuit has, for example, Monell claims, allegations of bias crimes. And part of bringing those claims embedded in that is exploring what policies they have, what training is being given or not given, and what kind of accountability structures, are people being disciplined when these incidents occur. And so in bringing those claims, part of it is digging into not just this incident, but how is the county or the posse conducting themselves, and are they going to do better going forward to make sure this doesn't happen again?
And what was it about this case that made you say this is something that I need to take on?
Oh, speaking personally, it was hearing the facts and just seeing then, as we said in the complaint, what was the reason they stopped Mr. Hill? Because he was wearing sweatpants, a hoodie, and his walk was, quote, non-normal. That is alarming if that is the stop pretext for targeting Mr. Hill. And then certainly chasing him outside the fairgrounds down into a church parking lot and tackling and holding him down when he's saying he can't breathe. Those are facts. And as we state in the complaint, there was a memo written by the by a former employee of City of Eugene, Mr. Dre Charles, who is now the head of the NAACP, Eugene Springfield, but at the time working with City of Eugene, reviewed the incident and wrote a memo basically itemizing so many concerning aspects of concern raised by this incident, including did those security guards and mounted posse have the jurisdiction to chase someone off the fairgrounds, or were they only supposed to be in the fair? That body cams weren't worn, that there were people with firearms that were engaging in this conduct. So when you look at public records like that, it certainly raises the concern in doing something about this.
Now that this lawsuit has been filed as of this week, what does the process forward look like for you all?
Yes, so the next steps are the defendants will be served, and then in approximately a month or so, they should be filing an answer where they must admit or deny which portions of the complaint are true, or they don't have enough information to say they're true, or that they deny it. So we should know more about their side of the story in about a month or so.